Well, good morning. Today is Christmas Eve as I am writing and also as I am telling this. The day started out foggy and warm for this time of the year. The sun's trying to break through the gloom right now, and according to the weather people, will eventually do so a little bit later on today. Now, I've come into work today to wrap up a few things before the holiday. The traffic on the street was much lighter this morning, and the portion of the parking lot that we lease here at the church to our next door neighbor, well, it's only about 1/3 filled today. I plan to be here for just a few hours and maybe then head home for the rest of the day. We're planning on Scott and family to be with us this evening, so I need to get ready for that, which means that I need to nap this afternoon. It's tough being semi-retired, but someone's got to do it. When I pulled into the parking lot of the church, I parked, and then rather than come into the office right away, I decided to walk to the nearby pharmacy and also the downtown post office. The wife had a prescription that I needed to pick up, and we needed some stamps at home for those 4 or 5 mailings that we do every month. I stopped at the post office first. It was a very slow day there. I was the first in line. I chose some stamp sheets, paid for them, and headed down to the pharmacy a block or so farther down the street. And the pharmacy was pretty much like the post office, not very busy. I got right to a clerk. The medication that I was getting was for the wife and was one of the more expensive medications, at least for us. A month of this medication that she gets with insurance is almost $140. Well, the clerk found the medication, rang up the charges. I tapped my credit card, entered my PIN number, and completed that transaction. And I didn't think about it at the time, but after I was back on the street and walking back to the church, I thought about how easy it was to pay for that medication. I never gave it a second thought. I knew we had the money in the account that is attached to that debit card. I also knew that we wouldn't need the money for anything else right now. And then I thought of some of those who I encounter and visit with as a minister. I do the benevolence at the church, and I regularly encounter folks who need help with, basic needs: food, transportation, utilities, clothing. Sometimes we can help. Sometimes, for whatever reason, we can't help. And I still struggle, even after doing this for more than a decade, to understand just how much as little as $20 in benevolent help means to some of the people that I visit with. A tank of fuel for a vehicle, a sack of groceries from our food pantry, paying the past due part of an electric bill, things I take for granted, things that I can get or do anytime, things I don't even have to think about whether or not I can afford them. What a blessing that is to not have to worry about such things. I've told you before, I've seen grown men and women just crater into an emotional puddle in my office when they were told that a utility bill would be paid or they were handed a gift card for groceries. In fact, that response is not at all unusual. And actually, it's one of the more satisfying parts of what we do here, to see some of the incredible stress and fear that these people deal with pretty much constantly melt away, even if for just a short time. And I also thought about a young couple who had just had their first child, far from home, very little in resources, no doctor, no hospital, no warm, comfortable place to stay. And instead, they found refuge in a barn. She delivered her first child there. And had it not been sometime later on for the generosity of strangers from a place far in the east, this young family may well have not remained intact, because they had to flee to a foreign nation to avoid the paranoia and the terror of the local governor. And they had to have resources, those gifts brought by those men from the East, to be able to flee to that nation. So today and tomorrow, as you bask in the warmth of family, friends, and the joy of giving and receiving. Remember the young couple who gave birth to God incarnate in a barn, in a backwater village, in a part of the world barely tolerated by the government of the time. And may you know the joy of generosity, the blessing of giving, the beauty of kindness, the humanity of loving your neighbor, and the divinity of knowing Jesus Christ.